Okay, good morning, everybody. Great to see you. Thank you for coming today. So, my sermon today is, not surprisingly, titled Hills and Valleys. And I chose this topic today because I think it's important for us to be reminded or to remind ourselves from time to time to be grateful in all circumstances. And it's also important to remind ourselves, as the song tells us, that God is the God of both the hills and the valleys. Sometimes we want to thank God when we are at the apex of our life, or we've just accomplished something amazing, and oh, thank you, God, so much. I feel so grateful. And that's not a bad thing per se, but being thankful to God when things aren't going the way that we would like to see in our lives is also very important. And it reminds me of when I did our missions program many years ago. And in our missions program, we did lots of fundraising. In fact, we did mostly fundraising. And many times people would, after going out for an hour or two, come back in the van, and they would be like, oh, I feel so grateful to God, because I went out there and I made like $200 or something like that. And more often than not, I was not that person. I was sitting in the van trying to find the gratitude for coming back with $5 or $10 or something like that. And, feeling kind of jealous for the people who did really well, but also recognizing, okay, I got to be grateful for what I got because I gave it my all. I invested myself, so it wasn't a waste. But sometimes it felt a little bit hard, like, oh, it would be a lot easier to be grateful if I could have just made more money. But regardless of where we're at in our life right now, whether we're in the hills or in the valleys, we're not walking this path of life alone. God sees us, God is with us, and there is a purpose for it all. And that's what I really love about this song. We have to talk about this because life is full of ups and downs. Today, some of you might be coming off of a really great week. You had a really great time. You see maybe a lot of things coming together in your life that you've been working really hard on. Things are paying off. Life feels good. And maybe you feel loved and appreciated by the people in your life. So you are on the top of the hill, or you're at the peak of the mountain, or a mountain. Thank you. Some of you may be feeling like nothing you do seems to matter. You feel alone and unappreciated. Maybe you feel lost and unsure of your life. You might be in the valley. And of course, many of us are somewhere in the middle. We're somewhere in the middle of that journey, because that's the funny thing about hills and valleys, right? If you've ever taken a hike to go up a mountain, the part where you actually get to the top is a very short part of the journey. You make all the effort, you hike all the way to the top, you get there, you try to enjoy it and appreciate it for a few minutes, and then you're on your way back down again. So 95% of your journey is going up and coming back down again. And that's kind of the way it is with life too. We have our extreme ups, where we're just feeling really good about life and we accomplish something really meaningful and we're really happy. And we have our extreme downs where we're just feeling like, I don't know why I'm even here, I don't know what I'm doing. And then we've got everything in between. And that's probably 95% of our life. But, I think partly because of the age of technology and social media, and just maybe our ambitions, I think to some degree it's natural that we want to be living in this top of the mountain feeling all the time. We see people who, you see their pictures online, they just seem like they have the perfect life and they've got everything that they want and they seem really happy. And then part of us is like, yeah, why am I not there? Why do I not have those things? I want to feel that way all the time. But the reality is that we spend almost all of our life in the middle. And those people too, even those people who look like they have the perfect life, you don't see their challenges, and you don't see all the journey that it took for them to get to where they're at, and also the journey that they're taking for the rest of their life afterwards. So our challenge is to learn to appreciate all those times. It's to learn to be grateful for the journey and not be too caught up in the valleys and in the peaks and the hills. This is an excerpt from a speech that Reverend Moon gave on this topic. How to digest and conquer your environment is the question. Don't ever try to escape from life, but feel challenged and persevere on your way. On an uneven road, ups and downs are to be expected. But where there are peaks, there are valleys at another time. When you find yourself in a dungeon, you must expect that in the next moment, God will bless you with the most grace. And this is from Ecclesiastes. Better is the end of a thing than its beginning, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Be not quick in your spirit to become angry, for anger lodges in the bosom of fools. Say not, why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, an advantage to those who see the sun. For the protection of wisdom is like the protection of money, and the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of him who has it. So I know that last part's maybe a little bit confusing, but I believe that what it's trying to convey is that, just like it's valuable to have money or an inheritance, wisdom is actually maybe a more meaningful inheritance for those who seek to see the brighter side of life, for those who see the sun. Protect the wisdom that you have, and for it preserves your life. It makes your life more meaningful. So, for myself, I found myself in a little bit of a season of the valley these past couple months. And I've been challenged to try to find gratitude in the things that I've been doing. And, it's just been a challenging time for us in some ways. And I found myself doing a lot of things that I need to be done, but I'm not terribly excited about them. Things that don't seem to obviously be that useful or that important, but are necessary to do, otherwise I wouldn't be doing them, to kind of lay a good foundation or groundwork for our community. And, even this week, we had actually a lot of blessings this week. Adonia and I had the chance to spend a night at a bed and breakfast in Evergreen. It was really nice. And we took the kids to the stock show, and everyone had a really good time. But still, sometimes we all find ourselves in the valley in our life. And even if good things come our way, it's hard to actually feel gratitude. It's hard to kind of pick your head up out of the situation or the feeling that you have and actually see the good things around you for what they are. But if we can't be grateful unless life is exactly the way we want it to be all the time, then we're going to find ourselves being very unhappy most of our lives. And so we don't want that. Gratitude is like the fertilizer for our soul. Without gratitude, it's easy to become bitter because life is full of challenges. Even the most beautiful, popular, fantastic-looking life has many challenges. Even the rich have many challenges. But there is beauty in challenges. And I think that is something that, especially as people of faith, but as just people in this world who are trying to do the best we can, that's something that we really need to be reminded of and to take to heart. When we are challenged in life, that's actually a special opportunity. It's a special opportunity for growth. It's a special opportunity to learn humility. It's a special opportunity to grow our roots deeper and to gain a greater appreciation for the times in our life when things are good. Many of you have heard this story, but I would like to share it again for those of you who haven't. There was a time in my life where I went through a very deep, dark journey of the soul. And I questioned everything that I had grown up believing or being taught. And I wasn't sure if God existed. I wasn't sure about our faith and our founders, our true parents. I wasn't sure in anything outside of what I could just see for myself. You know, my family, the world around me. It was, in some ways, a very dark time because I was so unsure of things and I had so much doubt in my heart. And I didn't feel like I could move forward as a person until I resolved some of these things. That was a tough year in a lot of ways. But I find myself actually, surprisingly enough, actually thinking back to that time in my life with some level of, what's the word? Nostalgia, or like, I kind of miss those times. It's surprising, right? Because it wasn't comfortable at the time, and maybe you can imagine some time in your life where you went through some difficulty. It may not have anything to do with your faith, but some challenge, something that really challenged you to your core of your being. Looks like they're doing face painting down there. You know, that's not an easy thing to go through, and it's not easy to maybe question all the things that you grew up believing or took to be true. But there was a part of me that felt really driven to dig deeper in my faith, to understand things in a more real way, to ask difficult questions. Is God real? Who am I? What should I even try to accomplish in my life? What is even worth doing? These are not easy questions to really ask yourself. And most of the time we end up asking ourselves these questions in a time of real difficulty in our life, when something very traumatic or tragic has happened, or really kind of forced you to question things in order to be able to get through them. Maybe you can relate. I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that sometimes wishes that I could tap into that fervor again, to really ask those deep questions, to deepen because I really felt that that year of my life, as challenging as it was, my roots went really deep, like way deeper than they were before. And it gave me a substance of my faith that I hadn't had before that time. I thought I had it, but I didn't. And sometimes I kind of miss that. I miss that feeling. I miss that fervor, that desire to deepen myself as a person. And I think that many times we can't separate the challenging times in our life from the maybe times of deepness or intimacy that we have. You know, it's like you're in a marriage, and you can't separate the good times from the bad times, from the peaceful times, from the times of maybe you're not like agreeing with each other, you're not seeing eye to eye, because it's going through those times of challenge that helped you to really appreciate who you are as a couple and to help you to become the people you are. Maybe for those of you who've been in the church a long time, you know, you maybe remember back to MFT days or early days of the church, or for those of you who did STF or GPA, you know, these experiences were very challenging, but there's also was a sense of purpose. There was a sense of camaraderie, of closeness to your brothers and sisters that it's not easy to replicate in normal life, you know? So there's something to be said about the unique opportunity of challenging experiences. The valley that you might be going through right now could be your new opportunity to deepen your roots and be the fertile soil for the future, for your future and your future generations. Here's another quote from our founder. He said, "The person who is capable of going deep down into the valley is also capable of jumping to the pinnacle of the mountain. The pinnacle is never linked to another pinnacle, but to the valley, and together they have a common destiny. This is a universal principle. Those in the valley can one day come to the pinnacle of the mountain." And then this is another one. "In your own lifetime, especially in the future, do you think there will be more moments of being grateful or more moments of being unhappy? Will more unsatisfying things happen or more happy things happen in your lifetime? Can you call yourself happy now? Do you feel grateful? Why do I talk about this? In one word, though whoever can feel grateful even in the midst of impossible circumstances will find themselves in the highest place in the spirit world. Now, this is kind of a controversial statement because what do we call the highest place in the spirit world, right? Because we recognize the spirit world has many levels. Other people would call that heaven, being closest to God. Why would he say that being in the highest place in the spirit world is something that happens when you can be grateful even in the most difficult of circumstances? Don't you get to heaven by what you believe? Or by going through certain sacraments or things like that, or being part of the right religion? No, that's not what he's saying there. I think there's a very good reason for that. And I think that if we step back and we look at history and we look at God, then it becomes very clear that in the entirety of human history, 6,000 biblical years, and who knows how many biological years, have there been more hills? Have there been more peaks of God just being like, oh, this is great, this is what I wanted? Or have there been more valleys? Has there been more human suffering? Has there been more just trying to build a foundation to try to rebuild God's original plan? It looks to me like if I looked at history and the way things are, it's probably been 99.9% valleys from God's perspective of the way he wanted this world to be. And then a few little hills here and there, a few peaks where God could be like, oh, this was a step forward. This makes me happy. This is why I created humans in the first place. So most of history, God has been in the valley. Yet God stays who he is. God stays hopeful. God stays patient. God is there. God is grateful despite everything. It's hard for us to comprehend that level of gratitude that God must have. And, I think that's kind of a hard thing for us to imagine as human beings. But I'd like to end by leaving you with a final thought that occurred to me last night about God's gratitude and how grateful God must be in order for him to be able to go through all of human history and still be optimistic and still be hopeful and still believe in us. The thought that I had last night is that God is grateful for us. God is grateful for you. God is grateful for the sacrifices that you made in your life. God is grateful that you chose his path. God is grateful. Oh, well. You try to, end it on a climax, and it works sometimes. Anyway, God is grateful for the efforts that you have made in your life, even if you don't feel that God acknowledges it or sees it or the people around you see it. God is grateful for your efforts. God is grateful to me. God is grateful to each and every single one of us. God is grateful to you. So actually, really, when I thought about that last night, I was really I'd never thought about that before. It must be true, because otherwise God isn't God. So please join me in prayer. Good morning, our most beloved Heavenly Parent, a source of gratitude and hopefulness and patience. You give us so much strength and hope for the future, Heavenly Parent, because we know that you, despite all the setbacks and all the valleys that you have had to go through with your children, that you don't change. Even we change, we complain, we become negative in our life when things don't go the way that we want them to go. And it's so hard for us to be grateful. Yes, we can be grateful when things go our way, but what about when things don't go our way? Or what about when we're on the journey? How much Are we really grateful, even though you are working behind the scenes in our lives and in this world? Heavenly Parent, I pray that we can, each and every one of us, foster a bigger heart to tap into your limitless gratitude and your love for each and every one of us and for this world. I pray that we can become bigger people, Heavenly Parent, and that we can, if wherever we're at in our life right now, we can seek to be more grateful. We can seek to invite you on the journey that we're on. That when we get to the valley or we get to the top of the hill, that we can just thank you for all the blessings and your presence in our lives. And I offer this prayer in our names, Blessed Central Family. Amen and adieu. Thank you.